In the summer of 1904, in the town of St. Martin, Louisiana, 41 guests checked into a quiet boarding house at 63 Barrow Street. They came from all over the pine woods of Mississippi, the riverbanks of Tennessee, the missionary towns of southern Georgia. They came to rest, to pray, to recover their health and renew their faith. None of them ever left. There were no final letters, no goodbyes, no train tickets booked. Not a single person stepped back out through that door. For nearly a century, the case number 1904-112 remained buried in the St. Martin City archives, sealed by order of the mayor himself. The Swampland Baptist Mission demanded the records be destroyed. The police chief resigned 3 days into the investigation, and to this day the old Duvall house is remembered by one name only, the Resting House. What they found in that basement rewrote everything the God-fearing citizens of St. Martin thought they knew about grace, faith, and charity. And tonight I'll tell you exactly what Clara Duval did to those 41 souls, and why no one dared speak of it for over 100 years. But before we descend into the shadows of Barrow Street, I have to ask, are you sure you want to know? Are you the kind of person who can handle the darker side of history? If you are, then this channel is for you. You're listening to The Forgotten Room, where the past isn't always dead, and sometimes it's just waiting to be found. If stories like this fascinate you, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from. I want to know just how far stories like this one travel. Are you with me? Let's begin. Clara Duval was a name once spoken with reverence in St. Martin. A widow of mixed French and Creole heritage, she'd lost her husband during the war and served as a nurse through 2 outbreaks of yellow fever. The townspeople said she had a healing touch, that her hands could calm a fever, her words could soothe grief, and her tea steeped with herbs grown in her garden could quiet even the most restless heart. In early spring of 1904, Reverend Abraham Gilroy, a prominent figure in the regional Baptist network, stood at the pulpit and declared, "If there is one place where a weary soul may find peace, it is under the roof of Clara Duval." That moment marked the beginning of what many in the community would later come to call the Season of Miracles. Ministers, missionaries, and church widows traveling through the region began booking rooms at her house, and once they arrived, few of them ever left. The house on Barrow Street was a grand but aging structure originally built as a wartime infirmary with thick brick walls and deep porches lined with moss-draped ferns. Guests said it smelled of lavender and myrrh, that the rooms were always warm even in the early months of spring, that each night after dinner the house filled with the soft sound of singing and a fragrant mist of what Clara called cleansing incense. They described her as a mother to them all. Among those guests was Lenora Kittredge, a 26-year-old church school pianist from Baton Rouge. She was the younger sister of Amelia Kittredge, a local teacher, and the woman who would later uncover everything. Lenora wrote to Amelia in March, describing the boarding house as the most peaceful place I've ever been. Clara knows when I'm tired, when I'm sad, when I need a prayer or a cup of ginger tea. It's like she's always known me. That letter was dated March 15th. It was the last Amelia ever received. Weeks passed, then a month. And when no more letters came, Amelia grew uneasy. She had always known Lenora to be punctual, reliable, and deeply devoted to their mother. It wasn't like her to disappear even temporarily without explanation. So in June, Amelia took the train south to St. Martin, arriving with a bouquet of yellow roses and a quiet worry she couldn't explain. The house looked calm enough. The garden was well kept. The windows were open. A soft scent of chamomile and something more exotic, something sweet, almost intoxicating, drifted from inside. She knocked on the door. Clara Duval answered. She wore a high-collared black dress, her silver hair pinned back neatly, her voice as soft as lace. "Miss Kittredge," she said warmly, "what a surprise. How can I help you? I'm looking for my sister." "Lenora." She said she was staying here. Clara's smile didn't fade. "Yes, dear Lenora. She is here in a manner of speaking, but I'm afraid she cannot see visitors at the moment. She's entered a period of spiritual cleansing. Total silence, no outside contact. The Lord is doing a great work in her soul." "I've traveled 4 hours by train," Amelia said. "Please, just let me see her for 1 minute." Clara shook her head, still calm, still polite. "I'm afraid that's not possible. Her soul is very close to breaking through. We mustn't interrupt." the door closed gently. And just like that, Amelia was left standing in the garden, unsure whether what she had just experienced was politeness or a warning. She lingered by the gate. The house was too quiet. No footfalls on the floors above. No humming from inside. Even the usual creaks and groans of an old house seemed muted, as though the building itself was holding its breath. That scent, whatever was in the air, it made Amelia feel. Not sick exactly, but unsteady, like the world was shifting slightly beneath her feet. She left without protest, but something had settled in her chest. A weight. A knowing. Something wasn't right behind the walls of 63 Barrow Street. And whatever Clara Duval was doing in that house, it had nothing to do with healing. That's where Amelia's journey began, with a knock at a closed door and the soundless refusal that followed it. The next morning, Amelia Kittredge sat alone at a cafe near the train station, nursing a cup of chicory coffee that had long gone cold. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Clara Duval's face, calm, polite, unwavering, and heard her say those strange words again. Her soul is very close to breaking through. Amelia knew religious language. She had grown up in the church, taught Sunday school, attended dozens of revivals. But what Clara said didn't sound like scripture. It sounded like doctrine twisted inward, like something made up to justify silence. She needed help. The only name that came to mind was Dr. Josiah Bell. He had once been a field surgeon during the Spanish-American War, then stayed in Louisiana after the fever epidemic of '98. He was quiet, observant, and known for treating anyone who came to his clinic free of charge if necessary. He was also one of the few people in town who hadn't fallen completely under Clara Duval's spell. Amelia found him alone in his clinic on Vine Street, halfway through a book of medical notes. His white coat was stained with ink and herbs. When she walked in, he looked up and simply said, "She's not writing you anymore either, is she?" Amelia stopped in her tracks. "You know about Lenora?" she asked. He nodded. "She came to see me twice in March. Headaches, confusion, trouble sleeping. Said she was having strange dreams, like her soul was trying to leave her body at night. I ran tests, but physically she was fine. I advised her to rest. She never came back after that." Amelia sat down across from him and told him everything, the letters, the visit to the house, the door closing in her face. Dr. Bell listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stood up, walked to a shelf, and pulled down a small leather-bound book. Inside were notes, symptoms, patient names, dates. Over the last 9 months, he had treated at least a dozen people who had stayed at Clara Duval's boarding house. All of them reported the same things: fatigue, a floating sensation, memory loss, and most importantly, the inability to leave. They kept saying the same thing, he murmured, flipping pages. "I can't leave yet. I'm almost finished." But they couldn't tell me what they meant by that. "What do you think she's doing to them?" Amelia asked. He closed the book. "I think she's drugging them. Low doses of opiates mixed with local herbs. Angelica root, maybe datura. Enough to keep someone calm, even euphoric. Long exposure would confuse the mind, make it easier to control." "But why?" Amelia whispered. He looked at her. "You already know the answer. Same reason she tells you your sister is not to be disturbed. Because she doesn't want anyone waking up." That evening, just after dusk, Amelia and Dr. Bell returned to 63 Barrow Street. The house was dark. According to a notice pinned to the chapel door earlier that day, Clara Duval had traveled to Baton Rouge to attend a religious gathering, a healing summit for the women of grace. She had announced the trip during that morning's prayer service and told the congregation the house would be empty during her absence. They didn't knock this time. Dr. Bell had brought a lantern and a small black doctor's bag. Amelia brought nothing but her resolve. The front door was locked, but the side cellar entrance behind the house was not. The wood creaked as they stepped inside, and the smell, sweet, thick, cloying, hit them like a wall. It wasn't rot. It was perfume. The basement stretched the full length of the house, built in 3 sections. The first was ordinary enough: shelves of canned vegetables, crocks of sugar, and flour sacks of dried beans. But the second chamber was different. Glass bottles lined the walls, labeled in handwritten script, "Anise valerian, Angelica clove laudanum." At the far end of the room stood a long wooden table covered in oilcloth. Upon it, small trays were arranged like an apothecary's ritual: dried petals, dark powders, rolled bundles of sage and fennel. Above the table hung a cross not made of wood, but of dried vines twisted and bound with red thread. "This isn't medicine. Dr. Bell said, his voice tight. "This is theater." Amelia stepped closer to the table and saw among the vials a box of correspondence. Letters, dozens of them, already opened and stacked neatly. Some were addressed to the guests who had stayed there. Others were written by Clara herself, outgoing replies carefully forged. She recognized Lenora's name on the front of one envelope. She pulled it out. Inside was a note in perfect imitation of her sister's handwriting. "Dear Amelia, all is well here. I feel lighter with each passing day. Please don't worry if you don't hear from me for a while. Clara says I'm very close to something beautiful. Your loving sister Lenora." Dr. Bell read the note over her shoulder, then looked at the signature again. She was copying them, he muttered, writing on their behalf, keeping up the illusion they were still functioning. Amelia didn't answer. She was looking past the table now at a narrow hallway leading to a third chamber. They followed it in silence. This room was cold, despite the thick summer heat outside. The floor was stone. The walls had no shelves, no storage. But there were metal containers. 7 of them, long, rectangular, with latches on either side. Dr. Bell knelt down and opened the nearest one. The man inside was middle-aged, dressed in a black suit and clerical collar, hands folded over his chest. His face was oddly peaceful but pale as wax. His eyes were shut. His lips were blue. "Oh my God," Amelia whispered. Dr. Bell leaned forward. "Preserved," he said. "Some kind of embalming solution. They've been here for weeks, maybe longer." They opened 2 more. A woman in a nursing uniform, her hands bound with rosary beads. A man with a tattered hymnal tucked against his chest. All of them at rest. All of them dressed as though for some final presentation. And on each container was a small card tied with ribbon. Name, date of arrival, date of departure. Amelia read Lenora's name on one of them and nearly collapsed until she saw the final line was still blank. "No date of departure. She's still alive," she said. They turned at the same time, their lantern flickering in the darkness. And then they heard the sound footsteps, light and deliberate, overhead. The front door opening and closing. Clara Duval had returned. For a moment, neither of them moved. The sound of the front door echoed faintly through the floorboards above the soft click of a lock, the gentle hush of shoes on wood. Then came the footsteps. Not rushed, not panicked, just steady, measured. Crossing the length of the hallway, stopping, then continuing again. Amelia reached for the lantern and turned the flame lower, casting shadows instead of light. Dr. Bell tightened his grip on the medical bag, though there was nothing inside that could be used as a weapon. The only thing between them and Clara Duval now was silence. Then came her voice. It floated down through the boards like incense, warm and perfectly calm. "I know you're down there," she said. Her tone was conversational, like she was addressing dinner guests. "Dr. Bell, Miss Kittredge, I saw your footprints in the garden path. I wondered how long it would take before someone came looking." Another pause, a slow, deliberate footstep above them. "I had hoped it wouldn't come to this," she continued. "But I understand. Love is a powerful thing, and grief makes us stubborn." The basement door creaked. A thin sliver of golden lamplight spilled down the stone steps. Her silhouette appeared at the top, a figure in white backlit casting a long shadow on the far wall. "You've seen my work," she said. "And now I suppose you think I'm some kind of monster." No one replied. Clara began to descend the stairs. Step by step. She was humming now. A hymn. One Amelia recognized but couldn't quite name. Something slow, reverent, the kind of song sung during the lighting of candles in old churches. The melody echoed strangely in the stone walls, twisting with each note, as if the air itself didn't want to carry it. Amelia backed toward the embalming chamber, guiding Dr. Bell with her. The containers stood like silent sentinels, their lids still open, their peaceful occupants untouched. She thought of Lenora wherever she was, somewhere above, somewhere trapped in another room, breathing that same sweet, suffocating perfume. Clara reached the basement floor and paused. The lamp in her hand cast wild, flickering shadows on her face. Her expression was not angry. It was gentle, even kind. "You must understand," she said softly. "They came to me broken, sick in body, sick in spirit, and they found rest here. That's what I give. Rest, No more struggle, no more sorrow, just peace. Dr. Bell's voice was low and cold. You drugged them. I freed them, Clara answered. They didn't ask for that. Her head tilted slightly. Didn't they? You think people knock on my door because they want another chance at life? No, doctor. They come because they're tired. Because their faith has failed them or their bodies have. They come here to be unburdened. She turned toward one of the open containers and ran her hand lovingly along its edge. Reverend Kearney prayed every night for the pain in his bones to go away. Sister Melrose couldn't sleep without crying. Brother Eli begged God for rest. And when no one else listened, I did. That's all I ever did. Amelia stepped forward. Where is my sister? Clara looked up. Lenora is safe, she said. She's resting. I want to see her. Another pause, another flicker of light in Clara's eyes. She's not ready yet. I don't care. Clara's lips curved slightly. And if you wake her too soon, what then? Would you pull her back into this world, into her sadness, her disappointment, her grief? She was never sad, Amelia said. Not until she came here. Clara shook her head almost sadly. You don't understand. You think this is about death. It's not. It's about mercy. I give people a choice they didn't know they had. Dr. Bell edged sideways closer to the hallway behind Clara. She didn't seem to notice. Where is she? Amelia repeated. She's in the final room, Clara said, and her voice softened even more. I prepared it just for her. There's music there, fresh linen, candles to keep her dreams bright. She's been seeing such beautiful things. Butterflies, children laughing, a river with golden water. She tells me about them when she wakes. You're not God, Amelia whispered. Clara stepped forward. No, she said, but I listen better than he does. Dr. Bell moved then. Quick and quiet, he slipped past Clara into the stairwell. She turned sharply, but he was already halfway up. The lamp in her hand flared as she raised it, but she didn't follow him. She looked back at Amelia. You shouldn't have come here alone, she said. I didn't. You think he'll find her? Maybe, if he hurries. If she hasn't gone too deep. Amelia stared at her. If you touch him, I swear. Clara held up a hand. I won't, she said. But I'll warn you, Miss Kittredge. Once a soul chooses to sleep, waking becomes cruel. You think you're saving her, but you're only dragging her back into pain. Then slowly she turned and began walking back toward the stairs. The light from her lamp faded behind her, swallowed by the shadows. Amelia stood in the dark, surrounded by the dead, and listened to the soft, steady footsteps of Clara Duval ascending now, not descending, not chasing, not afraid. She was going to let them find Lenora, because she believed they would be too late. Amelia didn't wait. As soon as Clara's footsteps disappeared above, she moved. Her legs carried her through the narrow hallway, past the bottles, past the still faces and the metal caskets, and up the stairwell where Dr. Bell had gone. The air changed as she ascended, less damp but thicker somehow, as if each breath had to be pulled through gauze. At the top, the door to the kitchen stood open, lantern light casting soft lines across the tiled floor. She emerged into the quiet stillness of the ground floor. The room smelled faintly of cinnamon and camphor. A kettle sat cooling on the stove, steam still rising. Everything was in place, tidy. Domestic. Too tidy. Amelia called out softly, Dr. Bell. No reply. She stepped into the hallway. It was then she noticed it. The house had changed. It was hard to explain at first. The walls looked the same. The wallpaper, pale yellow with faint vine patterns, hadn't moved. The floorboards still creaked beneath her shoes. But something was wrong with the length of it. She had walked this hallway just days ago when she came to find Lenora. It had taken maybe 10 steps then to reach the stairs. Now it was taking longer. She turned a corner and saw a corridor she didn't remember. Narrower, lower ceiling. There were no windows. Just a series of closed doors on either side, each marked with a number in elegant script, 3, 5, 7, 9. All odd numbers. She reached for the handle on door 5, but it didn't turn. Behind her, something shifted. Not a sound, exactly, more like a pressure. A subtle change in the air, like a person had entered the room but without making a sound. She turned sharply. No one there. The walls seemed to breathe. She moved forward faster now. She tried to retrace her steps, but the numbers didn't match. Now the doors read 468. There was no hallway like this in the real house. No floor plan could explain it. She heard something then. A voice. Muffled. Rhythmic. Chanting almost. Not Clara's voice. Lower. Male. Or perhaps several voices layered over one another. It came from beyond the farthest door. She stepped closer, pressing her ear against it. Words. Old. Latin, perhaps. Or a language that only half reminded her of hymns she'd once memorized in school. She heard her name just once spoken so clearly that she stumbled back. Amelia. She turned, heart thudding. Clara Duval stood at the far end of the corridor, her white dress untouched by dust or time. Her hands folded gently in front of her. "Did you think the house would let you take her?" she asked. Amelia's mouth was dry. "Where is she?" "She's in the final room," Clara said. "But you'll never find it that way." Amelia stepped back toward the last door, the one where the voices had been. "Then I'll make my own way." "You won't like what's behind that one," Clara replied almost gently. Amelia grabbed the handle. It was cold, too cold. She turned it anyway. Inside was a small chamber no larger than a closet. Shelves lined the walls, each holding glass jars. In every jar floated a different object. A lock of hair, a rosary, a wedding band, a scrap of cloth. One jar held a folded note still sealed. Another had what looked like a strip of lace, stained brown with time. At the center of the room stood a chair. In the chair sat a man, or what had once been one. He was dressed in a tattered preacher's coat, hands folded in his lap. His skin had the pale, papery hue of someone long past living. His eyes were open but filmed over. His lips moved slightly. It was his voice she had heard, the chanting, the whispers, and he was not alone. Lining the walls were others standing upright, propped like mannequins, their heads bowed. All of them still, all of them dressed in Sunday best. Their eyes were closed, their bodies perfectly preserved. It was a congregation. Amelia closed the door before her mind could understand what she had seen. She ran. The corridor shifted as she moved, doors opening, doors closing. The numbers reversed. She passed room 2, then room 0, then symbols she didn't recognize. She tried to call for Dr. Bell again, but her voice came out strangled, muffled by the air itself. Then, without warning, she found it. Lenora's room. She knew it instantly, not because of a number or sign, but because of the scent. Lemongrass. Vanilla. The soft floral powder her sister always wore. The door stood slightly ajar. Candlelight flickered inside. Amelia stepped through. Lenora lay on a narrow bed, her hands folded across her chest, her hair combed and arranged around her like a crown. She wore a white gown embroidered with tiny blue forget-me-nots. Her eyes were closed. Her chest rose and fell shallow but steady. She was alive. Amelia rushed to her side and touched her face. It was warm. Pale, but warm. "Lenora," she whispered. "It's me. I'm here." No response. She shook her gently. Still nothing. Then behind her the door clicked shut. She turned. Clara stood inside the room now, just a few feet away, her lantern extinguished. "She's dreaming," she said. "Beautiful dreams, the kind no one wants to wake from." Amelia's voice trembled. "Let her go. She chose this." She didn't know what she was choosing. She did. You just never listened. Amelia stood. For the first time, Clara's expression changed. It wasn't anger. It was grief. "You think I wanted this," she said softly. "I gave up everything to create a place where pain would end, where the ones no one cared about, those broken by the world, could rest. And they came. They came willingly. You lied to them. I gave them peace. You killed them." Clara looked toward Lenora, her eyes glistening. "I let them sleep." Amelia stepped between her and the bed. "Then it's time to wake her up." Amelia stood firm between her sister's sleeping body and the woman who had orchestrated everything. The flickering candlelight cast soft shadows across Lenora's face, but the air in the room was heavy. Not with smoke, but with pressure. Like the walls themselves were watching. Clara Duval didn't move. She simply stood there, hands folded at her waist, face serene as ever. But something in her eyes had shifted, no longer inviting, no longer soothing. There was steel behind her gentleness now. Steel and sadness. "You think this is violence," she said quietly. "But it isn't. You've locked her in a dream," Amelia replied, her voice shaking. "That's not peace. That's prison." Clara tilted her head slightly as if studying her. "She came here after the fire at the school. After the boy died in her arms. She was shattered. You didn't see her when she arrived. You weren't there." "I knew she was grieving," Amelia said. "But grief isn't an excuse to be stolen." "She asked me to make it stop," Clara said. "The dreams, the screams, the waking up each night with blood in her mouth from biting her own tongue. You didn't know about that, did you?" Amelia didn't answer. "She came to me trembling." Clara went on. "She begged to forget. I gave her forgetting. She wanted the pain to go quiet. I gave her quiet." "That doesn't give you the right." "I don't need the right," Clara said softly. "I only need mercy." For a long moment, neither woman moved. Then Clara stepped closer. Amelia's heart pounded, but she didn't step back. "I know what it's like," Clara said, "to hold someone's hand and feel them slipping. My husband died choking his lungs full of black fluid. My son. Do you know what it looks like to see a child with fever hallucinate snakes crawling from the walls? I watched them die, both of them. And no one could help." She raised a hand, palm open. "So I learned. I studied. Herbs, breathing techniques, scripture, medicine, and I began offering rest to others because I couldn't bear to see anyone else beg for relief and be ignored." Amelia's voice was low but firm. "You created this world so no one would tell you no again." Clara's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. "You think I'm a villain," she said, "but I'm a mirror. I show people what they already want." She turned her eyes to Lenora. "She wants to stay. You'll see that once she wakes." Amelia took Lenora's hand and pressed it gently, then again harder. Still no response. "She's drugged," Amelia said. "No, she's protected." "You mean sedated?" "I mean safe." Amelia turned sharply to face her. "You call this safe?" "She can't move, can't speak. She's barely breathing." Clara stepped closer. "She's not suffering. She's not living. Not everyone wants to." For a moment the words hung in the air like smoke. Then Amelia stood. "She's coming with me." Clara didn't stop her. Not physically. She only watched as Amelia wrapped Lenora's arms around her shoulders and gently pulled her upright. Her sister's body was limp but warm. Her skin smelled of rosewater and something deeper, something chemical. "I've prepared the proper tonic," Clara said behind her. "If you force her to leave now without it, the shock will break her." Amelia looked back. "Then give it to me. I'll need you to understand the terms first." "No terms. You'll ask for them later," Clara said. She turned and moved to the far corner of the room where a shelf held a small box of corked bottles. She picked one blue glass with a wax seal and held it out. Amelia hesitated. "She'll wake gently," Clara said, "or she'll wake screaming. You decide which." Amelia took the bottle. As she turned to go, Clara spoke once more. "You'll bring her back." "No," Amelia said. "Yes," Clara whispered. "Because when the world finishes with her and when your hands are no longer enough to hold her together, she'll remember this place, and she'll want to sleep again." Amelia didn't reply. She carried her sister through the hallway past the flickering candles, the numbered doors, the silent congregation. She didn't look back. She didn't listen to the hum that seemed to pulse through the walls. She walked until the air felt real again, until the shadows stopped shifting. Dr. Bell met her at the top of the stairs. He looked shaken, his coat torn at the sleeve, his eyes wide. "She locked the front door," he said. "I had to climb out the pantry window and back around." "I've got her," Amelia said. "She's alive." "Yes." They didn't speak again until they reached the garden. The night air hit them like cold water, and for the first time in hours Amelia felt her lungs expand fully. Clara didn't follow. She remained inside her house, her sanctuary. Watching. Always watching. They didn't return to the train station. Dr. Bell insisted on taking them to his home instead, a modest two-story cottage on the northern edge of town, hidden beneath oaks and thick vines. There he set up a cot for Lenora in the front room and drew the curtains tight. The light outside had shifted to that pale, uncertain hour between dusk and nightfall when everything seemed suspended. Amelia sat beside her sister, watching her chest rise and fall in slow, shallow rhythms. Lenora's skin had lost its pallor, but her lips still bore the faint blue hue of someone recently emerged from drowning. Dr. Bell mixed a bitter tonic and spooned it between her lips. She didn't react. "She's fighting it," he murmured. "The sedative's been in her system for too long. It's not just chemical anymore. It's psychological." "You mean she doesn't want to wake up?" "I mean," he said gently, "she may not remember how." They waited. An hour passed. Then two. The oil lamp burned low. The air in the room grew still. And then, just after midnight, Lenora stirred. Her fingers twitched, first barely. Then her head rolled slightly toward Amelia's shoulder. Her eyelids fluttered once, twice. Then she opened her eyes. Amelia leaned in, gripping her sister's hand. "Lenora, it's me. You're safe. You're home." Lenora blinked. Her lips moved dry and uncertain. "Is it still morning?" "No," Amelia whispered. "It's late. You've been asleep for days." Lenora frowned faintly. Her voice came slow, like she was tasting every syllable before saying it. "I saw you in the field." "What field?" "The one with the long grass. And the stars falling. You were calling me, but your voice was far away." Amelia looked at Dr. Bell, who nodded, already scribbling notes. Lenora's brow furrowed. "Why did you pull me out?" "Because you were trapped," Amelia said. "No," Lenora replied more clearly now. "I was home." Amelia swallowed hard. Dr. Bell knelt beside the bed. "Lenora, do you remember where you were before this?" She looked at him confused. "I was with Clara. And do you know what she was doing to you?" Lenora hesitated. "She was helping me forget." Forget what? Lenora looked down at her own hands, pale against the white bedsheets. "You don't remember," Amelia said softly. "Do you?" Lenora shook her head slowly. "I don't want to." Amelia felt a coldness bloom in her chest. "She kept you drugged, Lenora. She forged your letters. She tried to prepare you to die. We found the others, in the basement." Lenora didn't flinch. "She told me they were ready," she said, "that their burdens had ended, that they were no longer suffering." Amelia stood. "She manipulated you. She made you believe you were broken." Lenora looked up. "I was." The words landed like a blow. Dr. Bell shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. "I'm better now," Lenora continued. "But it wasn't the waking that healed me. It was the dreaming. Lenora, I saw Mama. I saw the children from the school. I saw the boy who died in the fire. He wasn't angry anymore. He forgave me." Tears spilled down her cheeks, quiet and steady. "She gave that to me. Clara, she gave me peace." Amelia turned away, unable to hide the shake in her hands. Dr. Bell broke the silence. "Whatever she gave you, it was laced with chemicals and lies. You nearly died." Lenora closed her eyes again. Maybe that would have been easier. The words hung in the air like smoke that wouldn't clear. Outside, a wind picked up, rustling the vines on the walls. Amelia stood by the window, looking out at the dark. She had rescued her sister. She had exposed the truth. But as Lenora drifted back to sleep, whispering words from some other place, some other dream, Amelia felt something she hadn't expected. Doubt. By morning, Amelia had made up her mind. She wouldn't wait, wouldn't second-guess, wouldn't let the confusion in Lenora's eyes or the calm in her voice soften what she knew to be true. Clara Duval had drugged her sister, imprisoned her, and prepared her for a death dressed as mercy. Someone had to answer for that. She left Dr. Bell's cottage early, riding in his carriage to the St. Martin police station downtown. The sun hadn't fully risen, and the streets were mostly empty, save for a few milk carts and boys sweeping storefronts. When she entered the station, she was met by a young officer behind the desk. "I need to speak with someone in charge," she said. "Immediately." The officer, perhaps no older than 25, blinked at her. "What's this regarding, ma'am?" "It's about Clara Duval." His posture shifted slightly. Not alarm, but recognition. The kind that curled inward like something uncomfortable had been touched. "I'll fetch the chief." She waited in silence. 10 minutes passed before Chief Alton Dre emerged from the back. He was a large man with a thick mustache and a voice that suggested he'd grown up barking orders across farmland. But he wasn't unkind. He offered Amelia a seat and asked what brought her in. She told him everything, from Lenora's disappearance to the letters to what she and Dr. Bell had found beneath the house. The vials, the embalmed bodies, the chanting man in the room of jars. She watched his face closely as she spoke. He didn't look surprised. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair and exhaled through his nose. "Miss Kittredge," he said slowly, "you understand that these are very serious accusations." "I do, and that Mrs. Duvall has been a respected member of this community for over 3 decades. That doesn't change what I saw." He tapped his fingers on the desk, staring past her for a long moment. "Then, were you able to identify any of the deceased?" "I recognized one, a Reverend Kearney. There were records of him traveling south earlier this year and he never returned." "Did you see her harming anyone directly?" "No. But she admitted it, what she was doing. She called it mercy." He nodded, still staring past her. Then quietly he said, "Thank you for coming in. I'll make sure this gets looked into." "That's it. We'll investigate." "When?" "As soon as possible." She stood. "Do you even believe me?" He looked at her, then really looked at her, and for the briefest moment she saw something behind his eyes. Fear, not of her, of Clara. "I believe," he said slowly, "that some things in this town are older than any badge I wear, and harder to uproot." Amelia didn't wait to hear more. Outside, the heat of the day was already rising, pressing against the cobblestones and church steeples. She made her way toward the parish office, hoping the local clergy would offer more support. They didn't. The secretary at the Swampland Baptist Mission listened politely, then gently informed her that Mrs. Duvall was under the spiritual authority of the regional council, and that concerns about her methods would be taken seriously in prayer. Amelia pressed harder. "People are dead, preserved like relics beneath her house." The secretary offered a sympathetic smile. "We believe in rest. We also believe in discretion." It was then that Amelia understood. Clara Duval wasn't acting alone. She had protection not just from silence, but from reverence, from years of building trust, offering charity, healing grief. She had become a pillar, a sanctuary, and no one in St. Martin wanted to see what was hidden in her foundation. That evening, Amelia returned to Dr. Bell's cottage, exhausted and empty-handed. Lenora was awake, sitting up, her eyes clearer than before. She sipped broth from a spoon and looked at her sister. "Well," she asked, "did you tell them?" "Yes," Amelia said. "They don't care." Lenora didn't seem surprised. "She's helped a lot of people," she murmured. "That buys loyalty. It shouldn't buy silence, but it does." They sat in silence for a while. Finally, Lenora whispered, "She said you'd try to take me, that the world wouldn't understand what she offered, that it would punish her for easing pain no one else could fix." "She's not a saint," Amelia said. "No, but maybe she's not a monster either." Amelia closed her eyes. She had come to St. Martin to rescue her sister. Now she wasn't sure who needed rescuing from whom. For 2 days, Amelia stayed quiet. She made no more visits to the police, no more arguments with the church. She fed Lenora broth, helped her walk short distances, sat with her in the garden behind Dr. Bell's cottage, as the breeze swept gently through the cypress trees. She let her sister speak when she wanted to and left her in peace when she didn't. But beneath that quiet, Amelia was watching, listening, waiting, and planning. Dr. Bell kept his distance for the most part. He was tending to other patients, working long hours at the clinic, but every evening he returned to check Lenora's pulse, her breathing, her clarity. She was improving, but slowly. Sometimes she'd speak lucidly for a few minutes, then retreat again into silence, her eyes wandering toward the edge of something unseen. It was during one of those silences that Amelia found the key, literally. Hidden inside the lining of Lenora's travel case, a small brass skeleton key wrapped in a strip of faded muslin and tied with thread. "What is this?" Amelia asked her. Lenora looked down at it, then away. "Clara said, if I ever change my mind, that I could use it. Use it for what To see the place again. What place? Lenora didn't answer. Later that night, once she was sure her sister was asleep, Amelia took the key and sat by herself in Dr. Bell's study. There, on a dusty shelf behind medical ledgers and herb jars, she found a thick black book with no title on the spine. Inside, handwritten entries dating back nearly 40 years, notes from Dr. Bell's predecessor and his predecessor before that. She flipped through the pages, unsure what she was looking for. But then she found it. A name. Duvall. Not Clara. A man. Jules Duvall, 1862. Patient. She read former surgeon turned faith healer. Claims to commune with the veil of mercy. Talks of places between breath and sleep beyond sleep. Wife and infant son died of fever. Patient reports continued visitation from them through stillness sessions beneath his home. Beneath his home. Amelia felt her skin crawl. Further down the page prescribes silence fasting and inhalation of dried herb compounds to parishioners. Reports from townsfolk of strange sounds, nocturnal gatherings, and unnatural peace among the grieving. 3 disappearances noted in proximity to sessions. She closed the book. Clara hadn't invented the house on Barrow Street. She had inherited it. The next day, under the pretense of shopping for linens, Amelia returned to the edge of the Barrow Street property. She didn't go through the front gate. Instead, she moved along the fence line into the overgrown trees near the back. There behind the garden shed and cloaked in vines, she found what she was looking for, a hidden door sunk low in the stone wall. A service entrance. She took a breath and slid the key into the rusted lock. It turned. Inside the hallway was dark and low-ceilinged with stone walls and a damp floor. The scent hit her immediately familiar now. Dried herbs, lavender, something metallic beneath it. She moved slowly, keeping to the shadows, the only light coming from narrow slits in the brick that let in strands of dust-choked sun. She wasn't sure what she expected to find. But it wasn't this. A room beneath the house. Circular. Carved directly into the earth. The walls were covered in symbols etched into the brick, old and curling like vines. Candles rested in wall sconces, half burnt. At the center of the floor lay a pattern drawn in what looked like chalk and dried root powder, a symbol she didn't recognize but which made her stomach clench the longer she stared at it. And surrounding the pattern were objects: shoes, locks of hair, photographs, a baby's bonnet, a priest's collar, a woman's wedding ring, offerings. She stepped closer. The air was still but not silent. There was a sound barely perceptible. A hum, low and layered as if coming from beneath the earth itself. Amelia dropped to her knees and placed her hand on the floor. It was vibrating. Not strongly, not like a machine, more like breath. Then she heard a voice, not behind her, not from any direction she could place. From below. "Do you see now?" She stood backing away from the center. The voice wasn't Clara's. It wasn't even human. It was layered male and female, old and young. Grief and calm and something too wide to fit inside a single life. Do you see what she kept? Amelia stumbled back into the wall. Her hands brushed over the etched symbols, and one of them burned. Not with heat, but memory. She saw Lenora kneeling in this very room, eyes wide, lips moving in silent prayer. She saw Clara behind her whispering into her ear. She saw others, dozens of others passing through, leaving their grief behind. But they didn't just leave it. They gave it. And something had taken it. The hum rose. Not louder, but deeper. Amelia felt it in her chest, her bones, her teeth. Whatever Clara Duval had opened in this place, it hadn't been just a method for healing. It had been a door. And it was still open. Amelia stumbled backward from the circle, her breath shallow and rapid. The ground beneath her still vibrated, a low pulse that felt almost sentient, as though it were listening, watching, waiting. She didn't want to touch anything else, and yet her eyes landed on a small object near the far wall. A photograph yellowed at the corners. She picked it up with trembling fingers. It showed a girl no more than 10 kneeling in the center of the circle. Her face wasn't frightened. It was serene. Behind her stood Clara Duval. But the date scrawled on the back chilled Amelia more than the image itself. 1879. Clara hadn't inherited the house from Jules Duvall. She was Clara Duval. Then, now, always. She'd never left. The photograph dropped from her fingers. She turned and ran. The corridor twisted behind her, narrowing and bending in ways that shouldn't have been possible. She followed the scent of sunlight and old wood, heart pounding. At last, she saw it, a thin beam of light slicing through a crack in the door. She burst through into the garden behind the house. Air, light, green, but not freedom. Clara was waiting. She stood just beyond the arbor, dressed in white, hands clasped before her as though she'd been expecting Amelia for hours. Amelia stopped, breath ragged. Clara tilted her head slightly, like one might look at a disobedient child. "You weren't supposed to go down there," she said. Amelia stepped forward. "What is it? That room. That symbol on the floor. What are you?" Clara didn't flinch. "A keeper." Of what? Of pain. Of peace. Of the thin line between them. Amelia held up the photo. "This was taken in 1879. That's you. That child. Or are you something wearing her face?" Clara looked at the picture for a moment, then back up at Amelia. "I was born Clara once," she said. "But names are like skin. They shed when the soul becomes too full." "What did you open in that house?" "I didn't open it," Clara said. "It was already open. I simply listened." "To what?" "To the thing no one else wants to hear." Her eyes were calm, but the light behind them was ancient. "Every soul you save, every burden you carry," Clara said, "leaves something behind. Fear, grief, shame. These things don't vanish. They collect. I learned to gather them, to offer them where they belong." Amelia took a step back. "You're feeding it." Clara smiled faintly. "I'm satisfying it. It's using you." "Is it?" she asked. "Or are we in agreement?" Amelia stared at her. "You've murdered people. I've released them. You buried them alive. I listened when no one else would." Her voice was no louder than before, but it carried weight now, a resonance that made the garden itself seem to still. "Do you think your sister would have survived another year in this world?" Clara asked. "Do you think the others would have lasted through another season of loss? War, famine, plague? I gave them rest. You made that choice for them. They came to me. You think I lured them. I lit no fires in the dark. I sent no invitations. I opened my door and waited." Amelia's hands shook. "You're lying. I'm offering." To me, Clara stepped forward. "You're tired too, Amelia. Aren't you?" "Not just from this. From everything. The worry, the weight, the way no one ever listens to you until it's too late. Don't you see it? You've been carrying the world like it owes you something. But it never pays back. It just asks for more." She was close now, close enough to touch. "I can take it," Clara whispered. "The weight, the grief, all of it. You don't have to explain. You don't have to fight." Amelia felt it then. Not fear, but temptation. A voice behind Clara's words. The echo from the basement. The promise. Let go. She closed her eyes and saw Lenora lying still on the bed, eyes glassy. She saw the bodies in the metal cases, the chanting man, the circle in the dirt, and she opened her eyes. "No," Amelia said. Clara's face changed. Not anger, something deeper. Disappointment. "You're not ready," she said softly. "I never will be." Clara stepped back. "Then go." "That's it. You'll come back," she said. "They always do." Amelia turned, not trusting herself to say anything else. As she walked away, the garden seemed to close behind her. The wind fell still. The path narrowed. And though she didn't look back, she knew Clara Duval was still watching, still waiting. Amelia didn't return to Dr. Bell's cottage immediately. She walked. Past the town square, past the silent church whose bell tower hadn't rung in days. Past the bookstore where she and Lenora used to sip weak coffee and talk about poems. Past the train depot where people came and went without looking up. She walked until her legs ached and her thoughts dulled from circling the same impossible conclusion. Clara Duval wasn't merely dangerous. She wasn't even just human. She was something older, wiser, wrapped in the shape of a woman. Maybe once long ago she had been someone like Amelia, someone who cared too deeply, who broke too hard, who reached too far into the quiet only to find it answered. By dusk, Amelia returned to the cottage. Dr. Bell met her on the porch. "She's asking for you," he said. "Lenora." He nodded. Inside, Lenora sat upright in the chair by the window, her posture stronger, her eyes alert. She looked almost herself again, except for the way she kept her hands folded, as if to still a tremor that hadn't quite stopped. "I remember more now," she said. Amelia sat across from her. "There was a room," Lenora whispered. "Not the one you found me in. Another. Lower. Clara called it the Hollow." Amelia nodded. "I've seen it. She said it was where pain went to rest. That if you offered enough of it, you could make space for peace. For silence. Lenora, she manipulated you." "I felt it," Lenora said sharply. "Something real. Something that took the weight from me." Amelia didn't speak. Lenora's voice softened. "I'm not saying it was good. I'm saying it worked." Amelia reached across the table and took her sister's hand. "I don't want you to go back there," she said. "I'm not sure I have to." "What do you mean?" Lenora didn't answer right away. She stared out the window. "There's someone here," she said at last. "He was in the house, too. I remember his face. One of the quiet ones." "Lenora, he came to the gate just before you got back. I saw him, standing in the dusk." Amelia stood, heart quickening. "Who?" Lenora looked up. "Reverend Kearney." Amelia froze. "That's not possible," she said. He's dead. I saw him in the chamber." "I'm telling you," Lenora said. "He was standing by the garden fence. He looked right at me, and he smiled." Dr. Bell stepped into the room, then carrying a cup of tea. "You're sure?" he asked Lenora. She nodded. His collar was still torn at the side. "That was in the report," Bell muttered. "The tear. From the night he disappeared." Amelia turned to him. "You said his body was embalmed." "It was." "Then what did she raise?" Dr. Bell didn't reply. The silence in the room pressed inward. That night they lit no lamps. They sat together, the three of them, in the front room of the cottage with only the moonlight through the curtains. No one spoke. No one moved. And just before midnight there was a knock at the door, soft, measured, 3 times. Dr. Bell rose first. He moved to the window and peered through the lace curtain. Then he stepped back, face pale. Amelia joined him. At the gate stood a man in a black coat, a white collar. His hands were folded, his skin pale as milk, his eyes open, but wrong. They didn't blink, didn't move. They only waited. Amelia whispered, "He was supposed to be dead." Dr. Bell whispered back, "Maybe he still is." They didn't open the door. They didn't sleep. The man stayed until just before dawn and then vanished. The next morning, Amelia found Dr. Bell in his study, already dressed, packing a satchel with notebooks, vials, and a revolver. "She brought him back," he said before she could speak. "You think it's really him?" "I don't know what it is," he said grimly. "But it remembers who it used to be." Amelia told him what Lenora had remembered, the name of the place Clara called the Hollow, and the old man's smile at the gate. Dr. Bell nodded slowly. "I've seen that smile before. Once. During the war. A man shot through the lung, dying and smiling, as if something just behind the veil had already spoken to him." "Where would she have learned to do this?" Amelia asked. "It's not medicine, not prayer. It's something older." "I have one idea," he said. "There's a church, or what's left of one, outside town past the Orchard Road. No one's used it in decades, but I heard rumors Clara used to pray there long before she opened her house." "You think we'll find something if we don't?" he said. "We'll at least find where it started." They left before noon, telling Lenora to stay inside and lock the door behind them. The air outside was humid and still. The road to the chapel was barely a path anymore, overgrown with moss and brambles, half swallowed by time. The structure came into view like something half-remembered from a fever dream, pale wood stripped bare by sun and rain, windows boarded over, steeple leaning just slightly as though too tired to stand tall. The door creaked when they pushed it open. Inside, the pews were splintered and overturned. Vines had crept through the cracks in the walls, coiling around the altar like fingers. Dust hung in the air in shafts of gold and gray. But the real discovery was beneath the pulpit. A trapdoor. It was old, warped with moisture, but still intact. Dr. Bell pried it open with the flat end of his satchel's clasp. The space below was narrow and steep, a root cellar, or maybe something older. Amelia descended, first lantern in hand. What they found was a room of silence. Books lined the shelves, hand-bound, stitched in rough leather. Candles melted down to stumps. And at the center, a stone basin filled with dark, dried residue. On the far wall, a series of handwritten pages had been pinned with rusted nails. Dr. Bell moved closer and read aloud. To those who wait in sorrow, I offer stillness. To those who burn in pain, I offer the hush. To those whose names have been buried, I offer return. Amelia stepped beside him. It's a litany, she said. A kind of reversed prayer. He nodded. A hymn. Not to God, but to what waits beneath the stillness. They pulled down one of the pinned pages. It was music, handwritten. Staff lines and notes drawn in ink so dark it bled through the paper. No lyrics, just the notation. But it wasn't a melody Amelia recognized. The intervals were strange, dissonant, unsettling. At the bottom, in small, tight letters, was a single phrase. To be sung only in the presence of the hollow. They sat in silence, absorbing the weight of the room. Then Dr. Bell spoke. There was a woman in Charleston. A nurse who claimed she could ease the passing of the dying. She'd hum to them, low, slow melodies. And people said, they went easier. But the ones who woke up after near death, they all said the same thing. What? She wasn't singing to them. She was singing to something else. Amelia looked back at the basin. What if Clara isn't feeding it just grief? She whispered. What if she's summoning it, or binding it? Dr. Bell said. Or worse, bargaining. They took what they could carry, 3 pages of the hymn, a fragment of a journal, and a small leather book written in cipher. As they climbed out of the chapel cellar, the light above had changed. It had grown dimmer. Though it was barely mid-afternoon, the cottage was empty. Amelia knew it the moment they stepped inside. Not from silence, but from the absence of something she had grown used to in the last few days. The rhythm of breathing behind closed doors, the scrape of a spoon against a bowl, the soft click of Lenora's fingernails against the armrest when she drifted into sleep. Now there was nothing. She called her sister's name. No answer. The door was locked. The windows latched. No signs of struggle. No broken glass. No footprints in the garden soil outside. But on the kitchen table sat a single envelope. Cream-colored. Heavy paper. No stamp. No seal. Just her name written in a hand that had haunted her dreams. Amelia. She opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a folded note written in that same soft, elegant script. She came willingly. I asked nothing. She offered everything. I do not force. I do not beg. But I do invite. If you wish to hear the last song, come to the place where sleep is deepest. Come home. See. Beneath the letter was a sprig of dried lavender. Dr. Bell read over her shoulder. His face tightened. She didn't take her by force, he said. Lenora went. But why? Amelia whispered. After everything, Bell sat down at the table. Because whatever Clara offers, it's more comforting than the truth. Lenora's grief isn't gone. It just changed shape. And Clara knows exactly how to speak to that shape. Amelia stared at the note again. The place where sleep is deepest, the hollow. She didn't need directions. She knew where to go. That night they packed what they needed: lanterns, rope, tonics. Dr. Bell brought the hymnal pages. Amelia brought the photograph, the one from 1879, with Clara in the circle. They walked in silence to the house on Barrow Street. The gates were open. The front door too. No lights inside. No sounds. Only the smell of dried herbs and something deeper, older. The house welcomed them like it had always been waiting. The air changed as they descended, first into the lower corridors, past the silent rooms and sealed caskets, and then beyond. Past where Amelia had stopped before. Clara had opened new paths. The walls looked older here, the stone rougher, the scent stronger. And then they heard it. Music. Faint. Almost imagined, but unmistakable. The hymn. The one written in ink that bled and notes that didn't belong. It was being sung. Not by one voice, by many. layered, echoed, low and full of sorrow. They followed it. The tunnel ended at an arched doorway of stone carved with symbols that shimmered faintly in the light. Beyond it, a chamber Amelia hadn't seen before, wider than the last, circular. At the center, a pool of still black water. Candles floated across its surface untouched by breeze. And standing at the far edge of the water was Lenora. She wore white, her hair braided and tied with twine. Her eyes were closed lips moving, singing. Clara stood beside her. She turned as Amelia entered, her face lit by candlelight. "I'm glad you came," she said. Dr. Bell stepped forward. "Let her go." "She's not held," Clara said softly. "She's choosing." Amelia's voice cracked. "Lenora, look at me." Her sister's voice didn't stop. The hymn continued. Soft, broken, beautiful. "She doesn't hear you now," Clara said. "She hears them. Who the ones you left behind, the ones she left behind. They wait. They remember. And through the hollow they answer." Amelia stepped closer. "If this is some ritual, stop it. Whatever power you've called it isn't holy." Clara smiled. "It's not holy, and it's not evil. It's simply listening." The ground trembled. The water rippled. From beneath the surface, lights began to pulse. Not reflections. Eyes. Dozens. Hundreds. Blinking open in the deep. Lenora's voice faltered. She looked at Amelia. For the first time, she looked afraid. Lenora blinked and her voice broke. The hymn collapsed mid-note, leaving the chamber in an unbearable silence. The echo of it lingered, then fell flat like breath held too long. Her eyes met Amelia's across the still black pool, and they were no longer serene, no longer entranced. They were terrified. "Amelia," she whispered, "I don't want to be here." Clara turned sharply. "No," she said. "Not now. You made your choice." Lenora took a step back from the water's edge. Her feet trembled. Amelia rushed forward. Dr. Bell drew the revolver, aiming it at Clara. "Get away from her." Clara didn't move. Her face didn't show fear, only pain. "You don't understand," she said. "You're breaking the thread. You'll undo everything. The only thing we're undoing," Amelia snapped, "is your hold on her." Lenora stumbled toward Amelia, arms reaching. They met at the edge of the pool and embraced tightly, breath catching between them. "I thought I could see them," Lenora whispered. "I thought it would be peace. But it's not. It's hollow. It's hungry." Behind them, the surface of the water began to move. Slowly. Silently. As if something vast were rising beneath it. Clara stepped backward. "You woke it," she said quietly. "You woke it wrong." The water bulged, but not like a wave. Like something pushing upward from beneath a shape with weight, depth, and intention. Dr. Bell fired a warning shot into the air. The sound cracked through the chamber like thunder. It changed nothing. The candles on the pool began to spin faster and faster, their flames twisting sideways. Then they went out one by one until the chamber was cast in pale blue light coming not from fire but from below. Amelia turned. What she saw in the water was not a body, not a monster, not even a face. It was an eye, vast, circular, lidless, and open. It saw her. It saw all of them. Clara dropped to her knees. She whispered something Amelia didn't understand. A plea, a prayer, a command. The light in the chamber began to flicker. Stone cracked along the walls. From the dark corners of the room, voices emerged, not spoken but remembered. Echoes of pain, regret, loss. Amelia heard her father's voice saying her name the way he used to when she was small and afraid of storms. She heard her mother's last breath. She heard the screams from the fire that took Lenora's students, and Lenora heard them too. She clutched her head, sobbing. "Make it stop. Please make it stop." Amelia looked to Clara. "Shut it down, I can't," Clara whispered. "It's already feeding." Dr. Bell grabbed the hymnal pages from his coat. "Then we unmake it." He threw them into the water. They burned not with flame but with light. Blue and white, searing and absolute. The pool shrieked not with sound but with pressure. The eye beneath rolled once, and every candle in the room burst back to life in a flare of gold. The chamber shook. Cracks split the floor beneath the circle. Clara screamed, not in fear but in desperation. No, no, they asked for this. They needed this. The water surged upward, but not like liquid. It rose like memory. Faces formed in the surface, brief ghostly impressions. The dead, the nearly dead, the desperate, the deceived. Then they vanished, and in their place came arms, pale, wet, reaching. For Clara. She didn't run. She opened her arms, let them take her. And as she disappeared into the water, she whispered a single word. Rest. Then the water stilled. The candles faded. The light beneath went out. And the room was dark again. The room fell still. No rumble. No vibration. Just silence, complete and consuming. Clara was gone. The water lay flat and black as if nothing had ever stirred within it. The eye had vanished along with the ghostlight and the reaching hands. Whatever power had once pulsed beneath the stone was now dormant or spent. Amelia turned to Lenora. "Can you walk?" Lenora nodded, though her legs trembled. Dr. Bell took her other arm, and together they moved back through the archway, leaving the pool and its secrets behind. But the hallway they entered was not the one they had come through. It looked similar. Same stone walls, same narrow passage, but the turn ahead had shifted. The floor sloped slightly upward, but too slowly, like the way a dream changes locations without transition. "Something's wrong," Bell murmured. Amelia slowed. "It's reconfiguring." "The house," Lenora whispered. Clara said, "The hollow listens. That when grief passes through a place long enough, it soaks into the stone. And now it's showing us what's soaked." Amelia muttered. They reached a bend in the corridor and found a door. Simple wood marked with a brass L. Lenora's breath caught. "I've seen this before." She opened it. Inside was a classroom. Desks in neat rows. Chalkboard at the front. The scent of paper and chalk dust. On the floor, a child's satchel. On the windowsill, a red ribbon tied the same way Lenora always tied her hair during teaching. Then came the smoke. Thick and low. And the screams. "No," Lenora said, stepping back. "No, this isn't real." But a figure moved through the smoke. Small, coughing eyes wide. "A boy." "Ethan," she whispered. He looked at her. His skin blistered, blackened. But he looked. "You left me," he said. Lenora dropped to her knees. I tried to get you all out. You ran." "No, I carried Sarah." "I thought you were behind me." "You ran," the boy said again. His voice wasn't angry. It was hollow, echoing. Then the door slammed shut, cutting off the room and the boy with a sickening finality. Silence. They kept walking. Another door. This time marked A. Amelia didn't hesitate. She opened it. Inside her childhood bedroom. But smaller. And darker. The window was shut. Rain tapped gently against the glass. A figure sat on the edge of the bed. Her father. Dead nearly 10 years. He didn't look up, just stared at the floor. "You always asked for too much," he said. Amelia's throat tightened. "I just wanted you to believe me." "You wanted the world to stop for you," he muttered. "And when it didn't, you screamed." "You weren't listening," she said. He looked up at her. His face wasn't cruel, just tired. "Neither were you." The room vanished. She staggered back, heart racing. Dr. Bell stood between them, keeping both sisters upright. "I think it's testing us," he said, "seeing what we carry, or what we refuse to bury." They walked on. The hallway bent again and again like an intestine made of stone. More doors appeared, each unmarked, each filled with something meant for them. They passed them all. Didn't open them. Didn't speak. Until at last they saw the stairs, carved from the same wet stone leading up. And at the top light, not candlelight, not that blue shimmer, sunlight. They climbed in silence, one step after another, and emerged into the entry hall of the Barrow Street house. Morning had broken. Dust motes swirled in beams of gold through the tall windows. No sound, no movement. The house was empty. Clara's books gone, the jars and herbs gone. Even the altar in the drawing room had vanished, as if it had never been there. They stepped out the front door. The garden was overgrown again. The gate rusted shut. No footprints in the soil, No candles, no watchers, just them, and silence. Autumn came early that year. The leaves in Vermont turned fast flaming orange and rust red before the first frost crept in. Amelia and Lenora had left St. Martin within days of the incident, never speaking again of what they saw beneath the Barrow Street house. They told Dr. Bell goodbye at the train station, and he promised to stay and watch what remained. But when they sent letters in the weeks that followed, he never answered. The house they heard had been sold, then demolished. The town moved on. It always did. By October, Lenora was living with relatives near Brattleboro, recovering in a quiet home with wide windows and thick quilts. She had nightmares sometimes, but fewer than before. She read more, walked more, smiled sometimes, though never quite all the way. Amelia moved into a small apartment above a library. She wrote, taught, slept little, and tried not to remember. But memory is a patient thing. It waits. It returns when you least expect. It arrived for her on a Tuesday morning, tucked inside a plain envelope delivered without a stamp. She found it on her doorstep. Just her name on the front. Amelia. Inside a letter. Written in the same soft, deliberate hand as before. The door is still open. You only thought you closed it. The hollow doesn't take without giving. And now it waits. But not for me. There was no signature. But something else was enclosed, a photograph, new, taken in recent weeks. It showed a child no more than 9 standing at the gate of what used to be the Barrow Street house. But the house was there, whole, standing, as if it had never been torn down, and in the upstairs window a face, pale, watching. Clara. Amelia's hands trembled. She looked up at the sky, at the ordinary clouds above her quiet town. Then she turned the photo over. One more line, written in blue ink. She's just begun singing again.